Beneath the somber vaults of Madrid's royal palace, behind heavy velvet drapes and glinting silver candlesticks, lies a tale so strange, so intimately grotesque, that it has lingered like a forbidden echo through the passageways of power for over 2 centuries. This isn't about a hidden jewel, a forgotten crown, or even the embalmed heart of a sainted ruler. No, this legend concerns something far more personal. When King Ferdinand VII of Spain died in 1833, it is said that a certain, very specific part of his anatomy was extracted and preserved, not his liver, not his brain, but his reproductive organ, sealed in a glass vessel brimming with alcohol. This tale, murmured in palace corners and inked in scandalous chronicles, has cemented its place among the most bizarre whispers of royal lore. Could it really be true? Was the supposed symbol of Spanish monarchical manhood truly bottled like a medical specimen to withstand the erosion of time? And how did Ferdinand VII, of all the monarchs in Europe, end up remembered, not for military victories or political legacies, but for the rumored fate of his genitals? To understand how history arrived at such a macabre footnote, we must first unravel the twisted life of one of Spain's most reviled kings. Ferdinand VII was never just a sovereign. He was seen by many as a coward, a betrayer, a tyrant, and according to his own people, the limp embodiment of an empire already past its prime. Born in 1784 to King Charles IV and Queen Maria Luisa of Parma, Ferdinand entered a Spain in decline. The nation had lost most of its overseas colonies. The fleet was wrecked by British forces, and the economy crumbled beneath its own weight. Revolutionary France loomed at its doorstep, a beast ready to devour the weakened Iberian Peninsula. From an early age, Ferdinand's character unnerved those around him. He displayed an alarming penchant for deceit, disloyalty, and political opportunism. As heir to the throne, he plotted against his own father, sending secret letters to Napoleon Bonaparte asking for help overthrowing Charles IV. This early act of betrayal set the tone for his reign. In 1808, after finally forcing his father's abdication, Ferdinand wore the crown for less than 2 months. Napoleon, ever the puppeteer, summoned both father and son to Bayonne, France, where one of history's most humiliating monarchical farces played out. Ferdinand willingly surrendered the throne to Joseph Bonaparte, Napoleon's brother, in exchange for a pension and the promise of a French chateau, while Spaniards took up arms in a brutal 6-year war of resistance. The rightful king sipped wine and strummed the piano in exile at the Chateau de Valençay, a guest of the very man who had orchestrated his fall. This betrayal burned deep. While guerrillas bled for Spain in the hills, Ferdinand flirted with French courtesans. It was around this time that murmurs began regarding his manhood, not just metaphorically, but physically. Letters stored in French archives hinted at peculiar infirmities, and whispered questions about the king's virility filtered into diplomatic dispatches. As the French grip on Spain weakened, Ferdinand returned in 1814 not as a triumphant liberator, but a sullied figure. And yet, the people hailed him as El Deseado, the desired one, in a tragic display of misplaced hope. What followed was nothing short of political whiplash. Ferdinand abolished the progressive 1812 constitution, crushed liberal dissent, and instituted a reign of absolutist terror that rivaled the darkest periods of European despotism. But the most haunting aspects of his reign emerged in his private life. He married 4 times, and each union was marred by failure, scandal, and most importantly, a troubling lack of heirs. His first wife, Maria Antonia of Naples, died childless in 1806, with whispers suggesting their marriage was never consummated. His second bride, Isabel of Portugal, radiant and intelligent, died after 3 years also without children. The third marriage, to Maria Josefa, Amalia of Saxony, descended into near farcical tragedy. For 7 long years, the couple tried every possible remedy: physicians, pilgrimages, sacred relics. But no child came. European courts began to openly mock the Spanish king's apparent sterility. Rumors now took darker turns. Some claimed Ferdinand suffered from anatomical abnormalities. Others blamed childhood illness. Satirical leaflets circulated in Madrid, cruelly depicting the king as incapable of performing his royal duty. By 1829, Ferdinand, aging, ailing, and desperate, was pushed by his council into a fourth marriage. His bride, Maria Cristina of the Two Sicilies, his much younger niece. The union reeked of dynastic desperation. Yet, almost miraculously, Maria Cristina gave birth within a year to Princess Isabella, followed later by Princess Luisa Fernanda. Finally, Ferdinand had offspring, but the twist was cruel. Both were daughters. In a world where male succession was everything, this did little to silence the rumors. Speculations flared anew. Was Maria Cristina's pregnancy truly the result of the king's efforts? Some whispered she had taken a lover. Others suspected strange elixirs or even primitive artificial insemination, unthinkable in that era, but not out of step with the desperation that plagued the Spanish court. Meanwhile, Ferdinand's health spiraled downward. Gout, obesity, and intestinal troubles confined him to bed. His moods grew erratic, veering from listless despair to frightening rage. Increasingly paranoid, he began obsessing over his masculinity, interpreting every critique of his rule as an attack on his manhood. Physicians were summoned constantly. He demanded aphrodisiacs, exotic tonics, and bizarre remedies, powdered rhino horn, extracts of New World plants, anything to restore his fading virility. This fixation on his manly power became his final crusade. In September of 1833, death came slowly for Ferdinand. His body, ravaged by disease, began to shut down. In the fevered twilight of his life, he made what some say was his most bizarre request. Accounts suggest that, perhaps fearing his legacy would be one of mockery, he gave instructions for a peculiar post-mortem preservation, his genitals, the source of so much speculation, were to be removed and stored, a perverse monument to his virility. Upon his death on September 29th, Ferdinand's body underwent standard embalming. Organs were removed, the corpse treated with preservatives, and here, legend claims, the extraordinary occurred that during this process, the royal phallus was separated, sealed in a jar of alcohol, and placed in the private archives of the royal household, a grotesque relic, secreted away like a cursed artifact. The first veiled reference to this story appeared decades later, in 19th century Spanish literature. The celebrated writer Benito Pérez Galdós hinted at it in his historical novels. Others, such as Ramón Mesonero, Romanos, made similar allusions in their court memoirs. Then came the French Alexandre Dumas. Père, in his travelogues through Spain, spoke of hearing whispers of a royal specimen hidden in the palace. Dumas, with his flair for the sensational, dubbed it the last trophy of the Bourbon crown. By the 20th century, the tale had become legend. Writers like Gerald Brennan, foreign journalists, and eccentric scholars kept the story alive. Though no evidence has ever surfaced, no document, no inventory, no physical jar, its grip on the public imagination only grew. The mystery, the eroticism, the scandal, it was too perfect. More than a historical curiosity, the legend reveals deeper truths about Ferdinand's life and the society that judged him. The idea that his masculinity needed preservation literally in a bottle echoes a time when a king's authority was tied not just to power, but to paternity. If he could not sire sons, how could he rule? Ferdinand's lifelong obsession with manhood mirrored a monarchy in existential crisis, clinging to symbols, while real authority slipped away. In that sense, the story of the preserved member becomes a dark metaphor for pride, impotence, and the absurdity of power. During Spain's turbulent 20th century, the tale found new meaning. Republicans mocked it as proof of royal decadence. Franco's regime, rigid in its ideas of masculinity, attempted to bury the story. But in democratic Spain, freed from censorship, the legend returned, reborn in books, television specials, and online forums. It had become folklore, a symbol of monarchy's grotesque vanity and downfall. Modern historians view the tale less as literal truth and more as symbolic vengeance. The people who suffered under Ferdinand's tyranny posthumously stripped him of dignity. What better irony than to claim the only part of him worth keeping was the very one he'd spent his life defending? No jar has ever been found. No royal archivist has confirmed it. And yet the tale refuses to die. It lingers in the public consciousness, not because of its veracity, but because of its poetry. The man who ruled with cruelty and cowardice is remembered not as the desired one, but as the king whose penis was allegedly embalmed. And perhaps that's history's final laugh. While Ferdinand sought immortality through bloodlines and monuments, all he left behind was a grotesque, legend one that reduced his life's grand delusions to a single floating relic in a jar. In the end, the legend of Ferdinand VII isn't just a curiosity of royal lore. It's a parable of power warped by ego, of legacy distorted by obsession. Whether his infamous organ lies sealed in alcohol or not matters little now. What endures is the myth and the warning it carries. History cannot be embalmed. It decays, it transforms, and sometimes it laughs.